The world of film is currently made up of remakes, rehashes, reboots, and the worst of the lot, unnecessary sequels. But gosh darn if the film watching public don't absolutely love a trilogy. This week's theme, then, is unnecessary threequels. In Francis Ford Coppola's third Godfather movie, The Godfather Part 3, Al Pacino returns as the patriarch of a gangster family, the Corleones. He's trying to make their business legit while showing his brother's illegitimate son, played expertly by Andy Garcia, the ways of the family. It's much slower than the first two, and definitely not in the same league even. It's been a long time since I've read the book and watched the first two parts, so thought this would be a fairer review, to judge it on its own merits. However, all the film does is make you pine for the originals, both stone-cold classics. It's not the fault of Garcia, or Pacino, or even Diane Keaton, but the script work is just not there. Michael and Kay's daughter, Mary, played by Francis Ford Coppola's daughter Sophia, wonder how she got that job, is also woefully miscast. It's easy if you know the right person, eh, actors? Also, the creepy love story between two first cousins is a definite distraction from much of the plot, which never really makes full sense and is often confusing. Well done to Robert Duvall for sitting this one out and letting his character be killed off screen. That being said, there are some superb scenes, and compared with your average Hollywood movie, it is very watchable, and its near 3-hour runtime still flies by. The soundtrack by Nino Rota is recognisably classic and addictive to listen to, particularly when it visits the themes from the last two films. In conclusion, I'd say this is one to complete the collection, and worth a watch, one watch, just to see how it compares and find out the end of the Michael Corleone story. The threequel to Cinderella is one of the more unnecessary sequels of our time, as it involves time travel and a complete avoidance of the first film's plot using magic. Cinders and her prince are happily in love when somehow the wicked stepmother gets hold of the fairy godmother's wand and reverses time to make the prince believe he has been in love with Anastasia, one of the stepsisters all along. It focuses more on the one-note villainous stepsisters, Anastasia in particular, than Cinderella herself. It makes them more human than just that tired adjective of ugly, which is probably the highest point I can give to this film. Other than that, it's pretty basic plot, and one for children whose parents are so fed up of watching the original, they'll try anything to get some new plot. It stays pretty simple, and it's safe to say that the 2004 film, A Cinderella Story, still remains the best of the Cinderella output. Following on from absolute sensations Lilo and Stitch the movie, Lilo and Stitch 2 Stitch Has a Glitch largely ignores the second story in the franchise and focuses its plot more on strengthening the core family dynamic of the first film. Stitch and Lilo here are more like siblings than pet and owner, with Nani still as the leading member of the household, juggling raising Lilo with bringing home the bacon and dating understanding David at the same time. Aliens Pleakley and Jumba make up the misfits of a family as they try to work out why Stitch has started having dreams of terror and realities of mischief. A note on Pleakley, a far cry from Disney's lame attempts at PC culture having random extras hugging in order to try to satisfy the LGBT community. Pleakley to me is and was the first trans character I can recall. Never was it weird, never was it noticeable, never did I question it. To me, he's just an accepted member of the family. That's what this movie, a straight-to-video title nonetheless, does best. Its messages of tolerance and love are much more superior to many a cinematic release without ever becoming preachy. Great stuff. In a horror franchise as massive as Halloween, nothing is as daring as the threequel to Halloween, Season of the Witch. The main antagonist of the series is completely written out in favour of a standalone story about an evil corporation trying to ruin everyone's All Hallows Eve by having children killed by the very masks they wear. When a man appears in the hospital raving and near death, Dr. Dan Chalice uncovers a deadly conspiracy in regards to the Silver Shamrock Novelties Corporation. The film is lame, and wouldn't be anything as interesting as one of the many other Halloween sequels. It was a box office flop, so standalone stories were never revisited again within the franchise. It's very meta, as the original Halloween appears on televisions in various scenes. The direction is okay, it seems more like a made-for-TV movie than anything else. The only thing that separates it is the music, for which John Carpenter does return, as well as the good use of makeup and gore in the more horrific scenes. Again, it's more for completionists than real horror fans. Not exactly unnecessary, and not really exactly a threequel, but here goes nothing. Goldfinger is the third and one of the more famous James Bond films. Starring Sean Connery as the secret agent 007, he must find a way to stop the eponymous Goldfinger from hatching a villainous scheme involving gold-covered women, Fort Knox and radiation. The plot is almost comic, and the stakes never overly high for Bond, who seems to bear no attachment to any of the B characters. In fact, apart from maybe during a fight with Oddjob, who is a great villain, we never really feel that much fear for Bond's life. The treatment of women is very of its time, with bum pats aplenty, but is the ridiculously named Pussy Galore a throwback to the femme fatales of old? Well, until the decidedly uncomfortable love scene in the barn of Goldfinger. Other than those, again of its time scenes, the film is a good action-packed blockbuster, cementing the Bond franchise as a national staple to be proud of. Of course, every cliché is only a cliché now because of how successfully it would have been used in these sort of films. I can't finish this review without mentioning the title song, which is my personal favourite Bond track, including even Scouting for Girls I Wish I Was James Bond, which I made a music video for when I was about 15. Bonus review on the theme of Three Identical Strangers starts with an American man, Rob, telling of the bizarre experience he had starting college when people seemed to recognise him as Eddie from the previous year. Further investigations, and maybe a little obvious spoiler here, lead to him discovering he has a twin. The story is further stretched when another sibling is found, David. Rob, Eddie and David, 3 identical strangers. Triplets! But that's only the first 10 minutes. The story becomes deeper and deeper, and in the words of The Matrix, we delve to see how deep the rabbit hole goes. The documentary is at its most interesting when we see how becoming triplets changed the lives of the 3 men for fame and fortune, even leading them to a cameo in a Madonna film, Desperately Seeking Susan. But the film doesn't go far enough. Its lens showing from the point of view of the triplets themselves seems a little biased. Previous crimes from one of the triplets is only very lightly touched upon, and darker aspects of the interviewees themselves are too light. I was tempted to give this a 3 out of 5 for obvious reasons, but I definitely more than liked it, as I have given it and the questions it raised some thought over the last few days since watching. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for next week's exciting episode of Wiggins Talks Films.